this is the War of the Roses. You've got the House of York and the House of Lancaster. York, white rose. Lancaster, red rose. Important images, colors, figures. We'll get to all that later. Okay. This is called King Henry VI. However, he does not show up a ton in the play. And I think the best way to understand the story is actually to follow his wife, Queen Margaret, who you've heard quite a bit about so far. So I'm going to plot it out something like this. Triangle with no line up at the top. Here at the beginning, Margaret gains power. She does this because Henry makes a treaty in which he says that, and Henry's of the Henry is Lancaster. He allows, he makes a treaty with York to say, you guys can have the succession of the English throne, but I'm going to reign while I'm still alive. His wife, Margaret, not so happy about that. They have a son, so she says, I'm not going to take that as an answer, and she gets the armies of Lancaster to rise and basically go fight the armies of York. And she wins that battle, and they end up killing Richard Plantagenet, who was in the last play. However, his son survives, Edward, and he's then going to be the current Duke of York. So all that happens here. Edward gathers the Yorkist armies together to go and fight Margaret, and he wins that battle. And so Margaret flees to France. So that's where we are down here. Margaret in France. And she goes to Louis the King to gain support to go and fight again to gain the crown. Let's see. So in the meantime, while she's in France, back in England, Lancaster, regains power. There are local people supporting the Lancaster line. They gain power and basically capture Edward, who is the head of the House of York. And so he's down for the count. But when it doesn't take very long for Edward to escape from them. He's captured by his supporters, and they go and fight a big battle against Lancaster, in which Edward wins. And so finally Margaret comes back from France, and she's got all of her armies, but it's too late and Edward has won. And anyways, Edward gets set up as king. So the long and short of it is that Edward of York ends up becoming king of England. And so the basic premise of the story is that, or of the play, is that King Henry of Lancaster begins as King of England, quickly loses that. His wife is consistently trying to fight power back throughout, which she is successful at times, fails to do. But in the end, Edward of York wins, and York is on the throne of England in the end. However, lurking in the background is a brother of Edward. His name's Richard, and he is plotting to overthrow his brother and gain the kingship for himself. The play is very much, it begins and ends in the same place, the House of Parliament, which is really interesting thematically speaking, because for the entire midst of the play, there's chaos. Brother fighting against brother, father killing son. And the first, I think this comes down to, the king, the head of the country, is out, and so order and chaos is ensuing. And so the play is a lot about the effects of the War of the Roses on the king, on the country, and on the people, and on the families that are involved in that. And the first line of the play is, how has the king escaped our hands? Which I think is emblematic for the rest of the story, in which the throne of England is actually vacant for the entire play. And there's chaos ensuing. I would go into more detail, but unfortunately, I have no time and it would make no sense. We'll get into that later, I'm sure. But just remember that Henry begins as king, Edward ends as king, and Margaret attempts to fight for Henry's power.